The thunderstorm rolls in before dawn, crackling over the Asheville Police Equine Unit like some angry god. Rain thrashes against the tin roof, seeping cold and wild into every wooden crevice. Inside the barn, the air is thick with electricity and dread. Officers cluster outside Griffin's stall, boots squelching in muddy straw, whispering in hushed, anxious tones. Their breath ghosts the air as lightning splits the sky. They watch the horse, their faces tight with old stories, most of them warnings. Griffin, the American saddlebred, is a storm of muscle and nerves, his dark brown coat streaked with rain-slicked sweat. The jagged white blaze on his face glows in the electric light, but his eyes are what haunt the men, wild, rolling, tracking every flash of light. The moment thunder bellows overhead, Griffin explodes, kicking, bucking, slamming his hooves against the thick wooden door. The force rattles the entire barn. Jesus, he's gonna kill himself in there. One cop mutters, voice taut. Another shakes his head. Last chance, right? After this, he's out. But no one moves to calm the beast. The chief is about to make the call when headlights wash across the rain-soaked lot. Dr. Talia Nguyen pulls up, rain-soaked, jaw set with quiet resolve. She's small but unyielding, dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail under a faded blue bandana. She walks with purpose, riding boots leaving bold prints in the mud. At her side, clinging to her hand, is a small girl, Layla Carter. 9, pale, her hair clipped short, wrapped in a yellow raincoat, eyes enormous and silent as the grave. Talia stops just outside the stall, shielding Layla with her body as Griffin's hooves thunder against the door. "Don't," an officer warns. "He's too far gone." Talia's voice is steady. "Let me try." The officers protest, furious, desperate, voices raised over the wind. "You can't risk the kid. If something happens, it's on you." But Talia's already swinging the stall open, guiding Layla forward with a gentle touch. "Trust me," she whispers, though it's unclear if she's speaking to Layla, the officers, or herself. Inside, the darkness pulses. Griffin stands rigid, his chest heaving, nostrils flaring at every distant rumble. His eyes find Layla first, something in her stillness, the way she doesn't flinch or shrink back, catches him off guard. The wildness softens, just a hair. Layla steps forward, her small hand open and empty. She doesn't speak, she can't, but she hums softly, a thread of sound almost swallowed by the storm. Griffin's ears flick toward her. He snorts, his body trembling, but he doesn't strike. Talia holds her breath as Layla inches closer, her raincoat bright against the dark. The world seems to narrow to the point of contact, a little palm and a battered nose touching in the gloom. Griffin's massive frame shakes, but instead of retreating, he lowers his head. His breath huffs hot against Layla's hand, and he takes a single, shuddering step forward. The officers watch, silent, awe and fear mixing in their faces. The barn quiets. For a heartbeat, even the storm pauses. It is Layla, the mute girl, who breaks the spell. She leans her forehead against Griffin's muzzle, her other hand winding into his tangled mane. The horse stands still, his wild gaze flickering, then melting into something softer, almost mournful. Talia feels tears prick her eyes, the tension in her shoulders easing for the first time in weeks. She catches the chief's eye and nods, silent agreement passing between them. But the peace is fragile. A bolt of thunder tears the sky apart again, and Griffin jolts, almost stumbling into Layla. The girl doesn't scream. She merely steadies herself, then resumes her humming, voice wobbling but persistent. The officers, shaken, begin to murmur, arguments and warnings colliding in the air. One gruff sergeant shakes his head. "You're crazy, Doc. You can't keep risking her." Talia's eyes are fierce. She's not in danger. He's protecting her. They need each other. Someone scoffs. That horse nearly killed his last handler. But Talia's attention is locked on Griffin and Layla, watching something invisible flicker between them. Like recognition. Or maybe relief. The rain hammers the barn, thunder chasing the minutes away. Griffin edges closer to Layla, eyes never leaving hers. Slowly he exhales, his whole body sagging, tension draining away. The officers exchange uneasy glances, unsure if they're witnessing a miracle or a disaster waiting to happen. Just as the tension threatens to break, the barn door groans, someone outside checking the locks. A stray flash of lightning reveals a shadow moving past the far end of the stalls. Talia frowns, senses prickling, but her focus remains on Layla and Griffin. She misses the dark shape pausing at the stall latch, fingers lingering a moment too long. Inside, Layla's humming fills the gloom, steady as a heartbeat. Griffin, battered and haunted, rests his muzzle in her hand. The storm rages on, but for one fragile moment, the beast and the brave stand together in the dark. Two survivors holding each other steady, while the rest of the world waits, breathless, for dawn. The storm hangs heavy over Asheville the next morning, leaving the air thick and restless. Clouds crowd the sky, and thunder still rumbles distantly as officers file back into the equine unit barn, faces lined with worry and skepticism. The events of the night have already become legend. Everyone's talking about how a mute foster kid tamed the department's most volatile horse. Talia can hear their doubts in every whisper, feel their scrutiny on her back as she moves down the aisle toward Griffin's stall. She finds him standing perfectly still, side pressed close to Layla's wheelchair. The girl sits quiet, humming softly, fingers twisting a ragged piece of blue ribbon through Griffin's mane. The horse is unrecognizable from the night before. No bucking, no flaring nostrils, just a trembling calm, as if he's surviving a storm only he can feel. Every so often, Griffin flicks his ear toward Layla's voice, muscles relaxing as she braids and unbraids his tangled mane. Outside the stall, the debate rages louder. Captain Fields, the unit supervisor, strides up, face red with fury. "Dr. Nguyen, we have procedures for a reason. That child is not a therapy animal volunteer. She's a minor, and this horse is a threat." Talia squares her shoulders. "With respect, Captain, Layla is the only one Griffin allows near him. If we separate them, we'll lose both. He needs her, and frankly, she needs him just as much." The captain shakes his head, muttering about liability and lawsuits. "You're risking everything. The city, your license, her safety. If anything happens, it's on you." Talia says nothing more. She knows the rules. She's broken plenty before in the name of healing. Sometimes protocol is just fear in a suit. Inside the stall, the world is different. Layla, so often silent and withdrawn, seems to come alive beside Griffin. She leans forward, whispering words so soft Talia can barely catch them. "You're safe. I'm safe." Griffin shifts his weight, lowering his massive head until it rests in Layla's lap. For the first time since her arrival, the girl smiles, a small, secret smile meant only for the horse. Talia feels a surge of hope, sharp and bright. She kneels, gently brushing Griffin's shoulder, careful not to touch the burn scar. "You know," she murmurs, "some of the best connections start with being a little bit broken." Layla glances up at her, eyes wide, and whispers, "I think he's scared. Like me." The words hang in the air, as delicate and powerful as the hush after thunder. Talia nods, her throat tight. That's why you're good for each other. The day stretches long. Talia takes her usual rounds, but her mind keeps returning to Griffin and Layla. After lunch, she ducks into the records office, curiosity pricked by the odd details surrounding Griffin's transfer. She flips through his medical file, a thick stack, dog-eared and smudged with fingerprints. There are entire pages missing, torn from the binder, and someone has blacked out the previous handler's name. In the margin, a note catches her eye. Sea incident, night at the fire. The vet's handwriting is shaky, as if they'd been in a hurry. Talia frowns, tracing her finger down the page. Meanwhile, back at the barn, Griffin follows Layla's wheelchair wherever she goes. When a group of officers in uniform approaches, he freezes, body going rigid, eyes darting between the men and the door. Layla, noticing his distress, starts humming again, off-key but unwavering. Slowly, Griffin relaxes, keeping a protective distance between Layla and the officers. The men shake their heads, baffled. Never seen anything like it, one whispers. That horse wouldn't let anybody touch him before. As the afternoon wanes, a local TV reporter tries to sneak a look at the dangerous horse and the miracle child. Layla startles, shrinking back, but Griffin shifts to block the stranger's view, lowering his head until only Layla can see his eyes. It's a tiny gesture, but Talia sees it, a sign of trust, maybe even loyalty. Layla's foster mother, Mrs. Carter, arrives just before sunset. She watches, hands clasped tightly in her coat pockets, as Layla brushes Griffin's mane with slow, careful strokes. She's never this calm at home, Mrs. Carter says, voice trembling. She screams at night, won't speak to anyone, just sits in her room and stares at the wall. But with him, it's like she remembers how to be safe. Talia nods, feeling the enormity of what's unfolding. Griffin understands. He's seen fire, loss. He knows what it's like to carry scars. Mrs. Carter's eyes fill with tears. Evening falls. The barn is quiet except for the steady sound of rain on the roof. Talia sits at her desk, journal open, sketching Layla and Griffin together. A girl with her hand in a horse's mane, both outlined in soft pencil lines. She scribbles a note. Shared trauma can heal itself, if given a chance. Suddenly, a clatter breaks the silence. Talia rises, heart pounding, and rushes to the barn. She finds Griffin agitated, nostrils flaring, eyes wild again. The stall door is slightly ajar, the latch hanging loose, as if someone tried to open it from the outside. Layla stands in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, shaking. Talia gathers Layla in her arms, soothing her with quiet words. Griffin presses his nose into the girl's shoulder, trembling. Talia checks the latch. No sign of an accident. Someone tampered with it. She glances down the row of stalls, but the barn is empty. Who was here? She whispers, more to herself than anyone. No answer. That night, she stays late, double-checking every lock, every shadow. She tries to call the captain, but his phone goes to voicemail. In the darkness, Talia sits beside Griffin's stall, Layla asleep in her lap, the horse standing watch above them both. Outside, the wind picks up. Somewhere far off, thunder rumbles again. But in the quiet barn, a new trust is being born, delicate, improbable, and stronger than the storm outside. A pale sunrise creeps across the Asheville skyline, softening the harsh lines of the police barn and washing the world in gold and gray. It's quiet, almost deceptively peaceful. Talia is already there, coffee in hand, standing by the paddock as the morning mist curls between the rails. She's sketching, the lines loose and dreamy, capturing the outline of Griffin and Layla together. Some days, drawing is the only way she can make sense of the pain and hope she sees. Inside the barn, the hush feels deeper than usual. Griffin stands close to the gate, head drooping, as if exhausted from holding himself together. Since the storm, he's different. Less explosive but fragile, his nerves wound tight as wire. He refuses to eat unless Layla is there, turning away from even his favorite apples until her small hand finds his neck. The officers have noticed. Some mutter that the horse is broken. Others think he's healing. Talia knows the truth is never that simple. Layla arrives before school, wheeled in by Mrs. Carter. She's sleepy, hair mussed, wearing the same blue raincoat even though the sun is out. She hasn't spoken at home, but as soon as she sees Griffin, something unlocks inside her. She hums, a broken melody, not quite a song, and Griffin pricks his ears, stepping forward. Layla reaches out, fingers finding the soft spot between his eyes. She whispers something, so quiet Talia can't hear, but the horse hears. He always hears. As Layla brushes Griffin, she moves slowly, methodically, almost like she's erasing the panic from his muscles with every stroke. Talia observes, noting the changes, the way Griffin's breath comes easier, the way Layla's shoulders unclench. She writes in her journal, "Healing doesn't look like victory. It looks like staying." Later that morning, Talia walks the empty arena with Layla and Griffin. The girl guides the horse through a homemade obstacle course. Cones, tarps, even a bright red ball. Griffin is skittish at first, shying from the noises. But he never bolts, always circling back to Layla's side. The officers, watching from the bleachers, are silent, half in awe, half in fear of what might happen if the spell breaks. Suddenly, a car backfires in the parking lot. Griffin jolts, the memory of fire flashing in his eyes, body tense as a bow. Layla freezes but doesn't let go. She hums louder, closing her eyes. Talia's breath catches as Griffin edges back toward Layla, pressing his scarred shoulder into her hand until the world feels safe again. The tension passes, leaving a hush in its wake. During lunch, Layla goes home with Mrs. Carter. At home, the quiet is heavy, full of memories she can't speak. That night, she dreams of fire and running, of horses screaming, of smoke choking the sky. She wakes up sobbing, clutching a stuffed rabbit. For the first time, she tells Mrs. Carter in a trembling voice, "It's always the fire, I can't get away." Mrs. Carter holds her close, but Layla won't meet her eyes. Talia, meanwhile, is haunted by her own past. She calls her old mentor in California, Dr. Maya Torres, the one who taught her how to listen for what animals don't say. The conversation is slow, weighted by grief. "I lost one," Talia confesses, voice thick, "a gelding named Leo. I did everything right, but I missed something. He panicked in the fire. I couldn't save him." Dr. Torres's voice is gentle. "Sometimes you can do everything right and still lose. The work is in forgiving yourself, Talia." But Talia isn't sure she can. Not yet. Later that week, during Griffin's routine physical, Talia notices something strange. She's checking his legs when she finds a cluster of old scars running down his left shoulder. The burn she already knew. But she spots a smaller pattern on his flank, thin white lines, jagged and familiar. It's not until she's helping Layla change into barn clothes that she sees nearly identical scars on the girl's upper arm. The same shape, the same angle, as if both survived the same inferno. A shiver runs through Talia. She makes a note in her journal, sketches the patterns, mind racing with questions. Could they have crossed paths before Asheville? Was Griffin's night at the fire more than just a coincidence? She digs deeper into both their files that evening, but the answers aren't there. Just more questions, and an ache that won't leave. In the barn that night, Griffin is restless. He paces his stall, snorting at every creak, flinching when shadows move. Layla sits with him, silent, eyes wide in the gloom. Talia brings her sketchbook, drawing them by lamplight. She writes, "Two survivors, neither whole, both still running from the fire." Layla reaches up, touching the burn scar on Griffin's shoulder, and whispers, "You're not bad. You're just scared." The words settle into the straw, gentle as a lullaby. The horse leans down, pressing his muzzle to her hand. His breath warms her fingers, and for the first time Layla laughs, a quiet, astonished sound. Talia closes her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. Healing, she realizes, isn't about forgetting. It's about seeing yourself in someone else's wounds, and letting that be enough. The evening ends with Layla asleep in the straw, Griffin lying beside her, and Talia sitting watch, as if daring the past to break their fragile peace. Outside, the stars finally emerge, silent witnesses to a night when nothing dramatic happened. Just a horse, a girl, and the quiet work of mending hearts. The next few days pass in a hush of late summer heat, the kind that settles over Asheville like a heavy blanket. The barn is quieter than usual. Officers speak in low voices, and even the horses seem to sense the tension that lingers from the near escape. Talia arrives early every morning, her blue bandana slightly askew, sketchbook tucked under her arm, boots still dusted from the previous night. She never stops watching Griffin and Layla, looking for answers hidden in the way they move, how their wounds seem to fit together. Layla spends long hours at the barn, drifting between chores and moments of quiet with Griffin. She brushes his mane with gentle fingers, sometimes humming, sometimes simply leaning her head against his warm side, eyes closed. There's a stillness between them, a slow pulse of trust, but beneath it, Talia senses something deeper, questions left unspoken, memories pressing at the edges of silence. It's the paperwork that finally draws Talia out of her haze. She's at her cramped office desk, files stacked in uneven towers, the faint hum of the barn fan rattling the window. The more she reads, the less sense Griffin's history makes. His transfer documents from the West are a patchwork of redactions and odd notes. Entire pages are missing. Accident reports, medical logs, handler evaluations. Each time she thinks she's found a pattern, the trail goes cold, blacked out names and clipped paragraphs leading nowhere. A knock at her door breaks her focus. Joel Santos, rookie officer, tall and earnest, a streak of mud on his uniform, steps in, carrying a battered manila folder. "Heard you were digging for ghosts," he says, setting the file down. "My cousin works in animal rescue back in Santa Cruz. Said you might need this." Talia lifts an eyebrow, wary. "What's this?" Bits and pieces, newspaper clippings, old transfer logs, even some vet records. The old handler, Sarah Flores. There's a lot people aren't talking about. She thanks him quietly, surprised by his initiative. Joel shrugs. "Family's family, you know?" Together they pore over the documents at Talia's desk, tracing Griffin's trail from California to Asheville. The clippings are scattered. A barn fire in the Sierras, children rescued, a deputy missing. The name Sarah Flores appears again and again, always tied to acts of bravery, but never with an ending. After the fire, Sarah's name vanishes from all records. "Presumed dead," one note says in heavy ink. Another, scribbled in the margin, reads, Do not contact family. Talia's skin prickles. She looks at Joel. Why would they hide her identity? Or erase so much? Joel frowns. The old department was investigated for corruption years ago. My cousin thinks the fire was covered up, maybe to hide something worse. Down at the barn, Layla begins to speak in her sleep. Mrs. Carter, worried, tells Talia that Layla mumbles names and places. Sarah, the red barn, mountains, all fragments tied to California, though she's never visited before. Talia listens, records the words in her notebook, unable to shake the feeling that fate has tangled these lives for a reason. One night, Griffin wakes the entire barn, thrashing and sweating, slamming his body against the stall. Talia and Joel rush in to find Layla already there, standing barefoot in her pajamas, humming in the dark. Griffin's panic ebbs as she presses her palm to his scarred shoulder, singing softly. The officers watch, unsettled, as horse and girl anchor each other through the storm of memory. Joel sits with Talia under the sodium barn lights, the quiet weight of night pressing close. He confides in her. His brother ran away as a teen, got lost in the system, never came home. Sometimes the system chews kids up, he says, voice rough. Maybe Griffin was just collateral. Talia nods, understanding more than she can say. She makes a decision. She will not stop until she knows the truth, for both Layla and Griffin. The next day, Joel calls his cousin in Santa Cruz, asking about the barn fire and Sarah Flores. The cousin promises to look deeper. Meanwhile, Talia digs through the Asheville PD database, searching for any unsolved missing child cases that overlap with Griffin's timeline. Late that afternoon, a name surfaces, a foster child, vanished after the fire, file marked as runaway, and closed within weeks, a no follow-up, no family found. A pattern forms, subtle but undeniable. Children, horses, and the shadow of the fire, always circling back to Sarah Flores. That night, Layla has another nightmare. Talia hears her calling for Sarah, begging not to be left behind. She wakes the girl, holding her close, and whispers, "We'll find her, Layla. I promise." Outside, a summer storm gathers. In the barn, Griffin stands sentry by the door, eyes watchful and somber. Talia sits by Layla's side, Joel quietly reviewing files in the corner. The tension is thick, but there's hope in the shared silence. A promise that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, will be brought to light. As rain begins to tap against the windows, Talia sketches a new drawing. Layla asleep in the straw, Griffin watching over her, and a woman's shadow, Sarah maybe, standing at the edge of memory. She writes beneath the sketch, "Some histories refuse to stay hidden. Some scars know each other by heart." The case isn't solved, not yet, but trust has grown, slow and steady, binding three wounded souls, woman, girl, horse, together in the half-light, chasing ghosts until the dawn. The muggy August heat presses down on Asheville like a weight, smothering the barns and hillsides. Talia wakes in the middle of the night, heart pounding with a sense of dread she can't shake. She grabs her notebook and flashlight, pulling on boots, and heads straight to the barn. As she crosses the gravel lot, she catches the faint whiff of ozone, an echo of old fear and fire. Inside, the barn is thick with shadows. Griffin's stall is a whirlwind of panic. He's soaked in sweat, whites of his eyes rolling, kicking the stall boards with wild, hollow thuds. He's spooked by a sudden power outage. The security lights are dead, emergency lamps flickering, the night thick and unsteady. The other horses stomp and whicker anxiously, but it's Griffin who looks ready to tear himself apart. Talia fumbles with her phone's flashlight, hands trembling. Layla is already there, clutching her stuffed rabbit, pajamas twisted, barefoot in the straw. "Let me stay," she begs, her voice barely a whisper. He's scared. Talia nods, her own nerves stretched thin, and lets Layla slip inside the stall. Layla sits beside Griffin, legs tucked under her. The horse circles her, body heaving, every muscle taut. But Layla doesn't flinch. She closes her eyes and begins to murmur stories, fragments of a childhood before the flames, the voice she usually saves only for dreams. Talia listens, her heart heavy as Layla whispers, "My mom said fire can't follow you if you run fast enough." But it does. It always does. Griffin's ears flick back, and with a shudder, he collapses beside Layla, head in her lap. Talia crouches outside the stall, hands knotted together. The barn feels suspended in time, the horse and the child trembling, but neither willing to run. Layla's words seem to ground Griffin, their breathing slow and in sync, a fragile peace forged in the heart of fear. It's almost dawn when Griffin finally settles. Layla strokes the burn scar along his shoulder, her own scars catching the faint light. Talia wipes her eyes, quietly amazed at the tenderness between them. She kneels beside Layla and, after a long pause, shares her own truth. "I lost a horse in a fire once," Talia says, voice raw. "He was scared, and I couldn't get him out. I think about him every day. Sometimes I wonder if I'm any good at this at all." Layla looks up, eyes wide and honest. "Nobody saved me either," she whispers, "but we're still here." Griffin nudges Layla's arm, breath warm, a silent agreement. For the first time, Talia sees both the girl and the horse let down their walls, shoulders relaxed, breathing steady, the fight momentarily gone. In the quiet, all three simply exist, three survivors in a circle of safety, watched over by dawn's first gentle light. When the power finally returns, Talia tucks Layla back into her foster mother's car with a gentle promise. "I'll call if anything changes." She turns back to the barn, her mind churning. Something about the way Layla's memories and Griffin's scars match still nags at her. Before the sun is high, she begins combing through Griffin's tack box, looking for any overlooked clues from his old life. She finds it buried at the bottom, beneath cracked halters and faded feed tags, wrapped in a rag of sooty leather. A badge, warped and half-melted by heat. She wipes the grime away, breath catching as the name comes into focus. Flores. The number is nearly burned off, but the last two digits are clear. Talia feels a jolt, remembering the name scrawled in Griffin's files, the missing handler everyone had written off. Layla, just returned for the afternoon, sees the badge and freezes. Her eyes widen in shock and recognition. She reaches for it with trembling hands, tracing the letters with her fingertip. "That's her," she breathes. "That's Sarah. She was with me in the fire." Talia's mind races, piecing together the puzzle. Sarah Flores. She was Griffin's handler, right? You remember her? Layla nods, tears streaming down her face. She got me out. I saw her with Griffin. There was so much smoke. I heard her voice and then nothing. She never came back for me. The weight of it all hits Talia in a single rush. Sarah, the lost deputy, tied to both the horse and the girl, their fates tangled in the flames. They sit together in the hay, the badge between them silent for a long time. Griffin noses the badge, snorting softly, as if remembering too. The moment feels holy. 3 lives joined by pain and memory, but also by something unbreakable. Mrs. Carter arrives, calling gently for Layla. The girl clutches the badge to her chest. "Can I keep this? I won't lose it," she asks Talia. Of course, Talia says. Maybe it's meant for you. That night, Talia writes furiously in her journal. She sketches the badge, Griffin, Layla, and Sarah's name. She writes, "Not all heroes come home. Some leave pieces of themselves behind for others to find." Sleep doesn't come easily. Talia lies awake, haunted by the ghosts of fire, but comforted by a single truth. The past may be brutal, but it's no match for the strength forged in its wake. She knows the path ahead is dangerous, but for the first time, she feels they might have the courage to walk it together. The wind rises outside, rattling the windows. In the barn, Griffin stands watch at his door, Layla's stuffed rabbit tucked into the straw. Something has shifted in the air, a secret brought to light, and with it, the faintest promise of healing. Night in Asheville descends heavy and restless, the kind of night when even the crickets fall silent. Talia's nerves are frayed. Her mind can't shake the weight of Sarah Flores's badge, the fragments of Layla's memories, and the way Griffin's scars echo them both. She sits at her kitchen table, phone in hand, journal open, piecing together every detail: dates, places, scars, and whispers in the dark. Her thoughts are interrupted by an urgent call from Joel Santos. His voice is tight with fear. "There's smoke coming from the barn. Get here now." Talia races through the empty streets, tires skidding on wet asphalt, heart pounding. When she reaches the equine unit, red emergency lights strobe against the sky. Smoke billows from the far end of the barn, sirens howling. Officers, firefighters, and animal control shout orders, their faces masked with panic. The acrid tang of burning hay is unmistakable. She leaps from her car and runs toward the chaos, shouting for Layla. Griffin's frantic screams slice through the night, terror made flesh. Talia spots Layla's foster mother sobbing at the fence. "She ran inside," Mrs. Carter gasps. "She said Griffin was scared. She wouldn't let anyone stop her." Talia plunges through the haze, barely able to see. She stumbles over fallen beams, dodges jets of water, and follows the only sound that matters: Layla's hoarse, wordless humming, somehow rising above the roar. She finds Layla crouched in Griffin's stall, arms thrown around the horse's neck, both shaking and half blind with smoke. Flames lick at the hay a few feet away, sparks raining down. Talia grabs Layla, coughing, and tries to pull her free, but Griffin refuses to budge. He's rooted to the spot, body trembling, eyes wild. "You have to trust me," Talia begs, fighting her own panic. "Layla, talk to him. Help me." Layla's face is streaked with ash and tears. She looks Griffin in the eye and, voice trembling but clear, whispers, "It's not the fire. We're together this time." She presses her palm to his muzzle. Talia, almost in disbelief, watches Griffin's breath steady, the wildness softening as Layla's courage anchors him. He lowers his head, following Layla as she edges backward, step by careful step. Behind them, a burning beam crashes to the ground. For a split second, Layla is trapped, frozen in terror. Talia screams, reaching for her, but Griffin surges forward, snapping his lead and swinging his body between Layla and the fire. Embers burn into his coat, but he stands his ground, refusing to let fear win. Joel bursts into the stall, hacking from the smoke. He drags Layla to safety, Talia right behind him, and together they coax Griffin through the haze and flames. In the chaos, other horses rear and scream, but Griffin, following Layla, leads a small herd through the shattered doors, out into the trembling light of the rescue trucks. The barn is a mess of water, smoke, and chaos. Firefighters douse the flames as police officers question witnesses. Layla clings to Griffin, both of them covered in soot and sweat, but alive. Talia stumbles to her knees beside them, choking back tears. It's not until the adrenaline ebbs that the questions start. The fire marshal finds clear evidence of arson, accelerant stains in the hay, a broken window near Griffin's stall. Joel, voice shaking with rage, reveals what he learned from his cousin in Santa Cruz. Sarah Flores's disappearance was never properly investigated. A former deputy, long suspected of corruption, was recently seen in Asheville, lurking near the equine unit. Talia realizes, with a sick jolt, that this fire wasn't random. Someone is trying to erase the past, and that means both Layla and Griffin are targets. A detective corners Talia, demanding answers. Why is this girl always at the center of trouble? Why does the horse react only to her? Talia bristles, shielding Layla from the man's suspicion. She's a survivor, and so is Griffin. They're not the problem. They're the reason this barn still stands. As dawn breaks, the investigators comb the rubble for evidence. Joel uncovers a half-burned notebook in the debris, a logbook belonging to Sarah Flores, filled with careful notes about Griffin's behavior, but also about her work with at-risk children. The last entry is dated the night of the fire, ending with, "If something happens, follow the scars." Talia feels the last pieces of the puzzle sliding into place. The scars on Griffin, the wounds on Layla, the lost children, the corruption no one wants to name. Before she leaves, Talia walks the paddock with Layla and Griffin. The air still smells of smoke, but the world is lighter, the worst of the night behind them. Layla, exhausted but defiant, hugs Griffin's neck. "He saved me," she says, voice hoarse but steady. "He always does." Talia looks at Joel, her resolve hardening. Whoever did this, they're still out there, and we're not letting them win. For the first time, Griffin's eyes are calm, almost gentle. He nudges Layla's hand and she smiles, quiet but unbroken. The barn may be charred, but hope, however fragile, still stands. As the sun rises over the wreckage, the three survivors make a silent vow to find the truth, to protect each other, and to finish what Sarah Flores started. It's barely dawn, and the air around Asheville is raw with the scent of burnt hay, police tape fluttering around what's left of the equine unit barn. Talia stands with Layla and Griffin in the pale sunlight, all three marked by soot and exhaustion, but their eyes burn with new resolve. The fire hasn't destroyed the last of their courage. If anything, it's hardened it. Inside the police station, the investigation is moving fast. Joel, now trusted by both Talia and Layla, has found a safe house on the outskirts of town, a cabin deep in the Blue Ridge, owned by the family of Sarah Flores. The threat is real. It's clear the arson was meant to silence the only witnesses left from that night long ago. Talia, Layla, and Joel pack quickly. Griffin is loaded onto a trailer, surprisingly calm as Layla hums to him, her small hand always resting on his neck. The drive up the winding mountain roads is tense. Talia checks the rearview mirror every few minutes, half expecting a dark sedan to appear behind them. Layla sits quietly, but her eyes are open and watchful. Joel tries to keep spirits up, making awkward jokes about mountain lions and ghost stories, but no one laughs. At the safe house, they're greeted by Lucas Flores, Sarah's younger brother, a man in his early 30s with eyes like his sister's, carrying years of pain in the lines of his face. Lucas is wary at first, especially of the uniform Joel still wears, but the sight of Griffin and Layla together softens his suspicion. "She was always bringing home strays," Lucas says, his voice thick. "Human and animal both." Talia, Joel, and Lucas sit at the battered kitchen table late into the night, going over every piece of evidence. Lucas brings out a box of Sarah's old things: journals, newspaper clippings, photographs. The pieces start to fit together. Sarah wasn't just Griffin's handler. She'd been investigating a foster care ring accused of abusing children, and had been using Griffin as a therapy animal for those too traumatized to speak. The barn fire was no accident. It was meant to cover up the disappearance of several children, including Layla. But Layla's memories are a tangled web. She's silent much of the time, drawing and redrawing strange maps on scraps of paper. Lines of mountains, a creek, the outline of an old red barn. Talia encourages her gently, sketching alongside her, asking questions in whispers. "Layla, do you remember anything from the night of the fire?" Layla shakes her head at first, but then starts to hum, eyes unfocused. Suddenly, she begins to speak, slow, broken sentences. "Sarah took me out, red barn, woods, hid me, said, wait for help. I heard screaming. She never came back." Joel's hands tremble as he writes everything down. "What else, Layla? Do you remember anyone else?" Layla draws a small circle on her map, labeling it with a crooked S. "Sheriff. He was angry, hurt Sarah, locked the barn, smoke everywhere." Lucas's jaw tightens. "That's him. Sheriff Donnelly. He's retired now, but he was always too close to the case. Protected the wrong people." The breakthrough comes when Layla, still half in a trance, draws a map to an old cabin deep in the woods, one Lucas recognizes from his childhood. "That's where Sarah used to take us when things got rough at home," he says. "She said it was the only place she felt safe." They set out early the next morning, nerves taut as wire. Joel leads the way in an unmarked cruiser, Talia and Layla following in her old Subaru, Griffin riding behind in the borrowed trailer. The drive is tense, the silence broken only by Griffin's restless shifting. When they reach the cabin, the woods are thick and silent, sunlight dappling the moss and ferns. Lucas unlocks the door. The place is thick with dust and memories, but Layla moves straight to a loose floorboard near the fireplace. With Talia's help, she pries it open. Inside is a rusted metal trunk. Within the trunk are Sarah's journals, pages and pages of notes about the children she'd tried to help, records of abuse, names, dates, even photographs of Griffin comforting terrified kids. Talia's hands shake as she leafs through them. One entry stands out, dated the night of the fire. "Sheriff Donnelly knows. If anything happens, tell the truth. Griffin will remember." There's more. DNA test kits, swabs and envelopes, carefully labeled. Joel calls the station, his voice urgent. "We've got proof. Get a team up here and keep it quiet. Don't let the wrong people know." As they wait, Layla and Griffin sit together on the porch. Layla draws the mountain view, her hand finally steady, humming softly. Griffin lowers his head to her lap, at peace. The police team arrives by nightfall, and forensic techs begin sifting through the evidence. The DNA from the journals matches several missing children's files, including Layla's. The conspiracy is wider than anyone feared. Not just one corrupt sheriff, but a network of officials covering up the abuse, silencing whistleblowers like Sarah. Joel, shaken but determined, turns to Talia. "This is bigger than Asheville. Are you ready for what comes next?" Talia looks at Layla and Griffin, both survivors now shining with quiet strength. "We have to be. For Sarah. For everyone they tried to erase." That night, as darkness falls on the cabin, the three of them, woman, child, and horse, sit by the fire, the shadows finally receding. They have uncovered the truth. Now they must make sure the world hears it. The news breaks like a dam at sunrise. Federal agents swarm the cabin in the woods, preserving every shred of evidence found in Sarah Flores's trunk. Joel stays on the phone, voice low but fierce, ensuring nothing vanishes this time. Talia, Layla, and Griffin watch the swirl of uniforms and unmarked cars from the porch, bracing for the fight that's been years in the making. By noon, Asheville is buzzing. The story rockets through the city. A hidden network of abuse, a horse at the center of a rescue, a missing deputy's name cleared by the strength of a traumatized child. Reporters camp outside the station, and the DA calls an emergency hearing. Talia barely has time to gather her thoughts before she's swept into the courthouse, hand in hand with Layla, with Joel and Lucas close behind. Griffin is stabled just outside, his presence requested as living proof of the events that unraveled everything. The courtroom is tense, packed wall to wall. On one side, Sheriff Donnelly, former deputies, city officials with pale, pinched faces. On the other, survivors, social workers, press, and families who have waited for this reckoning far too long. Griffin stands at the entrance, calm but imposing, ribbons of sunlight tracing his burn scar and notched ear. His eyes search for Layla, and she finds him instantly, smiling softly as she takes her seat near the witness stand. The judge calls for order. Talia takes the stand first. Her voice is steady as she lays out the evidence. The badge, the journals, the DNA tests, the timeline of cover-ups and violence. She speaks for Sarah, for the missing, for every child and animal lost to the flames. When Talia finishes, the courtroom is silent, a silence thick with anger and hope. Next, Joel testifies, recounting the night of the fire, the arson, and the intimidation that followed. He describes Layla's bravery, the clues she drew from memory, the way Griffin protected her again and again. His hands tremble, but his words cut through the lies. Sometimes justice isn't about protocol. Sometimes it's about listening to the ones who've been ignored. Then comes Layla, small and pale but determined. She stands before the crowded room, voice trembling but clear. She looks at Donnelly, her abuser, her enemy, and does not flinch. You told me no one would believe me, but Griffin did. He never left me, even when the fire came back. She takes a long breath, glancing at Talia and Joel for courage. I'm not afraid anymore. Griffin showed me how to fight. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Survivors reach for each other. Talia sees Mrs. Carter weeping, Lucas with a clenched jaw, Joel bowing his head. Outside, Griffin stands sentinel, his presence a quiet warning that the past can no longer be hidden. The prosecutors read from Sarah's journals, line by line. They list the children's names. They play a short video, found on an old phone in the trunk, showing Sarah leading kids out of the burning barn, Griffin steady beside her, Layla clinging to his mane. The truth is undeniable. In the final hour, the defense collapses. Faced with overwhelming evidence, journals, photos, DNA, witness after witness, Sheriff Donnelly breaks. He confesses to his role in the cover-up, the threats, the fire. His co-conspirators are led out in cuffs, heads bowed in shame. The crowd erupts, some cheer, some cry. Reporters rush to file their stories. The judge, voice warm but stern, delivers her verdict. Justice is not vengeance. It is the work of restoring what was broken. This court recognizes the courage of those who refused to be silenced. As the officials are sentenced, Talia feels her own breath return. Layla is ushered from the stand, stumbling a bit, but Griffin is there, his velvet nose pressed into her shoulder, grounding her. The city celebrates Griffin as a hero. He becomes a symbol overnight, his photo gracing news sites and magazine covers. Donations pour in for the new therapeutic riding program, set up in Sarah's honor. But the work is not done. In the days that follow, Talia, Joel, and Lucas meet with survivors and their families, helping guide them through the aftermath. The rescue unit is reformed, built on transparency, trauma care, and the hard lessons learned. Layla volunteers to help other kids, always with Griffin by her side. A week after the trial, Talia stands on the barn's rebuilt foundation, watching the first group of children brush Griffin, their hands careful and awestruck. Layla sits among them, quietly instructing, voice growing stronger each day. Joel tells the story in local schools. Sometimes heroes have hooves, not just hands, he says, and the kids listen, eyes wide. The sense of closure is powerful, but Talia knows it's not the end. Healing is a journey, not a destination. She leans against the fence, watching Layla braid ribbons into Griffin's mane, the horse patient and calm. The sun sets golden over Asheville, a city changed by truth, a little girl, and a horse that refused to give up. In the crowd that evening, Talia catches sight of Sarah's mother, face shining with tears and pride. She nods once at Talia, a silent thank you that needs no words, and for the first time in years, Talia feels the scars inside her begin to soften, not erased but transformed, a testament to the unbreakable power of hope. Months have passed since the truth was dragged into daylight, since Griffin and Layla stood at the center of a courtroom and the city's long, festering wounds began to heal. Asheville is shifting, humming with a new sense of possibility. The rebuilt equine unit barn stands bright and open, fresh paint gleaming, laughter and hoofbeats rising with the wind. On a cool autumn morning, Talia pulls into the new therapeutic riding center, her own boots crunching in the gravel, blue bandana flapping in the mountain breeze. She pauses to take it in. The pastures now fenced with ribbons, swings hanging from old oaks, and children darting between horses, their joy pure and contagious. Griffin stands beneath a maple tree, head lowered as he lets a shy boy brush his burn-scarred shoulder. There's a gentleness in him now, a patience that surprises even the seasoned handlers. Layla, older and taller, guides a new group of children through gentle exercises. Her laughter is louder, her posture stronger, a soft lilt in her voice as she reassures a girl too nervous to mount. Talia watches all this with a quiet ache of gratitude. There are moments when the scars still pulse, old guilt, old loss. But there's also something new, the realization that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means building something stronger out of what's left. She walks the fence line, sketchbook under her arm, and pauses to jot notes. Trust is built in small moments. Loyalty is refusing to give up, even when hope runs thin. Inside the barn, Talia finds Joel, now officially a youth counselor, leaning against a stall door, chatting with a group of teens about the importance of second chances. "You know," he says, "sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show up for someone, day after day. Heroes come in all shapes, sometimes with hooves, sometimes with hands." The kids nod, listening in a way they never did for authority before. Joel's own scars, visible and invisible, give his words weight. Layla's transformation is nothing short of miraculous. She volunteers nearly every day, her presence a steady beacon for the anxious, the withdrawn, the broken. When a child cries, she sits beside them in silence, hand resting on their knee until the tears slow. When a horse startles, she hums soft melodies, drawing on her own journey through fear. Griffin is always close. his huge dark eyes following her every move. Together, they anchor the barn, living proof that pain can be remade into comfort, that trust can bloom where there was once only survival. One afternoon, as golden leaves tumble from the trees, Talia sits with Layla beneath the old oak. Layla runs her fingers through Griffin's mane, her eyes far away. "Do you ever think about Sarah?" she asks softly. "Every day," Talia answers, voice gentle. "She saved you. She saved Griffin. In a way, she saved me too." She hesitates, then adds, "But I think she'd want us to live, not just remember." Layla nods, tears shimmering but unshed. "Sometimes I dream about the fire. I wake up scared. But then I remember, Griffin was there. You were there. It's different now." Talia hugs her close. Scars never go away, but they don't have to hurt forever. Later, Joel gathers the kids and volunteers in the new indoor arena. He's invited a class from the local high school to hear Griffin and Layla's story. Talia stands back, letting the next generation take the spotlight. Joel tells the story with humor and heart, weaving in lessons about justice, courage, and forgiveness. "There's a saying," he tells them, "that the wounds we carry can become the bridges we build. Griffin was called broken, so was Layla. But together, they built something nobody thought was possible." He glances at Griffin, who nudges a nervous boy with his nose. The barn echoes with laughter. Layla speaks next, voice clear and unwavering. "Griffin taught me that being afraid isn't the same as being weak. He showed me that even when you're scared, you can help someone else be brave." She looks around the arena, her gaze meeting each child's. "You don't have to fix everything. Just don't leave people alone in the dark." As the group disperses, Talia lingers, watching parents hug their children, volunteers brushing horses, Joel leading a shy teen through breathing exercises. She feels the story's ripples widening, outward, touching lives she'll never know. Later that evening, as dusk settles in, Talia sits on the barn's back steps, Griffin grazing quietly nearby, Layla reading to a cluster of younger kids. The sky glows purple and gold. Joel joins her, and they watch the children laugh, horses snorting and pawing at the soft earth. "It cost us a lot to get here," Joel says quietly. "Sometimes I wonder if it was worth it." Talia nods, eyes soft. Justice always costs something. So does loyalty. But look at them. Healing is happening, piece by piece. It's not about erasing what happened. It's about making sure it means something. They fall into companionable silence, listening to the voices and hoofbeats echo through the barn. Before she leaves, Talia writes in her journal by lantern light, "Loyalty means never abandoning the wounded, even when hope seems lost. Justice requires facing uncomfortable truths and refusing to let secrets stay buried. Healing always takes courage, from both humans and animals." She draws a final sketch of Griffin and Layla, framed by the golden light and laughter. The scars are visible, but so is the strength that's grown around them. Tonight, Asheville is at peace. Tomorrow, the work continues. But tonight, for the first time, the barn feels like home. A year has passed. Asheville glimmers under a pale spring sun, cherry blossoms drifting across the streets, banners flapping above Maine for the city's first parade honoring abuse survivors and animal rescue. The world feels changed, lighter, more open, as if the secrets and sorrow of last year have made room for something new. Talia stands with Joel and Layla outside the newly christened Sarah Flores Therapeutic Riding Center. Griffin is beside them, shining with ribbons and wildflowers braided through his mane, head held high and proud, burn scar faded but never forgotten. The crowd is immense. Families, school groups, officers, rescue volunteers, and dozens of children, some holding painted signs, some wearing matching blue bandanas in quiet tribute. At the curb, Mrs. Carter waits, Layla's adoption papers in hand, her smile trembling with joy. Layla is the first to speak as the parade marshals gather. Her voice, once so fragile, rings out over the crowd, clear and strong. When I was scared and alone, people told me to be brave. But I learned from Griffin that real bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about reaching out when you're hurting. If you see someone scared or alone, human or horse, don't walk away. You could be their rescue. The audience falls silent, then bursts into applause. Layla blushes, waving to Griffin, who dips his head as if bowing for the crowd. The parade begins. Griffin leads the way, flanked by Talia, Joel, and Layla. Along the route, children and adults alike press to the barriers, reaching out to touch Griffin's warm flank or run their hands over the bright ribbons. Layla laughs, tears sparkling in her eyes as she hugs her mother, her forever family at last. Talia walks in step, her heart swelling with pride and humility. For so long, she'd feared her own scars would keep her from truly connecting, from healing. Now she watches Layla ride Griffin through the cheering crowd, sees the other children drawing courage from both horse and girl, and feels the past loosen its grip. She knows she has become part of something bigger, a tapestry woven from pain, love, courage, and forgiveness. At City Hall, the mayor presents Layla, Talia, and Joel with a proclamation for extraordinary courage and service to the children and animals of Asheville. The crowd cheers louder and cameras flash. Joel grins, a little sheepish, but holds Layla's hand as she beams for the photographers. As the sun climbs higher, the parade gives way to a picnic on the grounds of the riding center. Talia sits on a blanket beneath a blooming magnolia, sketchbook in her lap, watching as Layla helps a group of nervous children approach Griffin. The horse stands patiently as little hands stroke his neck and nose, his gaze gentle and unafraid. It's the first time some of these children have smiled in weeks, and Talia feels tears prick her eyes. Lucas Flores joins her, carrying a tray of lemonade. He nods at the scene before them. Sarah would have been proud. All of this. She dreamed of it, but you made it real. Talia shrugs, humbled. We all did. Griffin did. He never gave up on anyone. Lucas smiles. Sometimes the animals are the best teachers. They love without conditions, forgive without words. As afternoon drifts toward evening, speeches give way to music and laughter. Mrs. Carter finalizes Layla's adoption, and the crowd erupts in a standing ovation. Talia, Joel, and Lucas gather with them, forming a new kind of family, one built not on blood, but on the choices they made when things were hardest. Griffin, draped in flowers, becomes a symbol for the whole city, that survival isn't just endurance, it's transformation. Layla is invited to give a closing speech. She stands on the makeshift stage, sunlight in her hair, holding Griffin's lead. She pauses, looking out at the sea of faces, children, parents, strangers who are now friends. I used to think scars meant something was wrong with me, she says. Now I know they just mean I survived. Griffin survived too. We all did. If you see someone hurting, don't turn away. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do is stay. That's what makes a family. That's what makes hope real. The crowd listens, moved and quiet, then erupts in applause once more. Children swarm Griffin, and he stands, patient and still, letting each one press a hand to his neck, unafraid, regal, beloved. As the evening sun sinks behind the blue ridge, Talia snaps a photo. Layla, beaming, arm around Griffin's neck, Joel with an arm slung around both of them, Mrs. Carter laughing through tears, Lucas and the volunteers tossing flower petals skyward. The air is alive with celebration, but beneath it all, Talia senses something deeper, the knowledge that healing is not a destination, but a shared journey. She sits in the grass as dusk deepens, sketching the golden light, the parade's last echoes, Griffin's strong silhouette. Her final journal entry for the story reads, "Justice is more than punishment. It's the ongoing work of making a world where scars become badges of survival and hope. Loyalty, trust, and the refusal to give up on the broken, human or animal, are what heal families and communities. Legacy is not the fire, but what we build after." As twilight settles, Talia, Layla, and Griffin walk together toward the barn, laughter swirling in the soft night air. The past is part of them, but it no longer owns them. They are a family now, chosen, mended, and shining beneath the quiet stars of a world made new.